Prison guards of Reddit, what is the most extreme thing you ever saw happen in your prison? Via my father, one prisoner was trying to kill his cellmate, but didn't have a weapon. So he took a pen, stuck it in the guy's ear and stomped on it. It came out of the victim's mouth. Did it work? Not mine, but my dad's. First day he was there, a riot occurred because some dumbass prisoner thought it would be funny if he stole a book from a prisoner and blamed it on someone else. Long story short, the guy who was blamed had all 4 of his limbs broken and his face beaten to a pulp. Apparently they already had beef between them. Bro, it was only a prank. My dad was in prison and the craziest day he experienced was sometime around the end of his first week in. He had been keeping his head down, but one of the other inmates told him to meet him outside by the corner of one of the building during their free time outside. He was hesitant because he didn't want to get into trouble right out of the gate. He looked toward the corner of the building and saw a small group of guys huddled, and he got even more concerned. Just as he was going to walk away, they noticed him and called him over. He accepted. These guys were passing around a cantaloupe and sharing it. Each guy had a spoon and they'd take a bite and pass it on. Not a guard but a prison nurse had to respond to a cell fight where one man bit off another man's nose. The most extreme one I heard though was from a doctor I worked with. My first patient ate her own eyeball. This is taking the word extreme to a different level, but when I was a prison guard, female working in a men's max, I worked in the kitchen. I tried to be firm, fair and consistent, and it worked. I mean, I went home whole every night. Somehow a few of the prisoners found out it was my birthday, and towards the middle of my shift they had me come around the office, and there on the table was a 4-layer industrial size cake with pink frosting. I was touched. They told me to get my piece before everyone else did, and not even 10 minutes later it was gone. No, a prison guard, but I work in a psych hospital. Worst thing I saw was a man fingering his stoma in his stomach so hard it was bleeding. He was repeating "fuck me" in the pussy as he fingered it. Couldn't get that shit out of my head for a few days. As I was trying to pull his hand out of his intestines, he was looking deep into my eyes and begging me to fuck it. That guy was a mess. I did a bid in Florida about 4 years ago. While I was inside, they let my cell block come into the common area to watch the iHeartRadio Awards. Never would have watched it on my own, but it was nice to have the distraction. This was the summer that Ariana Grande had that One Less Problem song, and she performed it right before JLo came to the stage. Now, I'm in with mostly Puerto Rican inmates, so JLo being on was a big goddamn deal. Some dude just loses his shit during the Ariana Grande song. Some of the dudes said he was into little girls or something and throws a very lightweight plastic chair at the TV. Didn't think it would do much damage, but it busted the LCD. Hell broke loose. Dudes weren't gonna get a chance to see JLo's ass, and they wanted blood for it. I ran my gringo behind back to my cell, and a 60-man brawl ensued. All of this to say, in the midst of the insanity, one guy bit another guy's thumb off and swallowed it. One of my former teachers used to provide mental health services in the county jail. She said the worst thing she saw was an inmate who went insane. He was quiet and polite, and doing a small amount of time for a minor crime. But then, he got in one small fight and was moved to max, and something in him snapped. He decompensated so quickly that by day 4 he was smearing fesses on the wall and singing nursery rhymes. He was taken away by ambulance and was never seen again. I have many stories, and many about this particular prison, but one stands out to me the most. Doing a count one day, everyday stuff, and it involves looking through trap windows to make sure everyone is present and breathing. Get to this prisoner's cell. Let's call him Prisoner X. Now this prisoner has a long history of sexual abuse from his childhood. As a result, he is an absolutely chronic masturbator. The amount of times I've had to have conversations with him while he is going to town on his ham bone are innumerable. Anyway, doing a count with a female officer, she looks through the trap and immediately recoils. Now all I can hear is a loud buzzing sound and the sounds of furious masturbation. I decide to check the trap against the warnings of my offsider. Should have listened. Turns out he was using the unit's hair clippers. But he had them wrapped in a glove, turned on and shoved squarely up his ass. All I could see was the cord plugged into the wall leading into his loudly buzzing anus and him giving his old fella the exercise of its life. Edit. Yes. fuck? I understand I never ended up referring to him as X. I thought I would at start of the story, and then didn't. I am gonna leave it up there though, because I can actually take criticism as well as X can take a pair of clippers. I have a friend who's a prison guard. Just the other day he was telling me about an inmate who called over one of the guards and held out his hand holding something in his fist. Not really thinking anything, the guard holds his hand out and the inmate drops what he was holding into the guard's hand. As he starts walking away, the guard looks in his hand and sees the inmate's testicles. I didn't ask if they were still in the sack, but I'll find out next time I see my mate. Then a few weeks later the same inmate cut off his penis. With all the serious ones, I thought I would give a funny one too. Worked in a youth correctional facility. The units were Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, etc. On Charlie dorm there were 3 openly homosexual youth who were way over the top when it came to stereotypical gay behavior, talked in lisps, used red Kool-Aid powder to make lipstick, tied their sweater arms together to make a purse, etc. Well, one day they are walking down the hall together, see me in my office and said, "Hey teach, check this out." Then the 3 of them dropped and did the Charlie's Angels pose. I laughed my ass off. Honestly, there's no such thing as a bad time to do the Charlie's Angels pose. I don't think I saw anyone mention the gun, as there will be people who just drop their pants and start viciously jacking their dick the moment they see a female company. Doesn't matter if they are fat, skinny, ugly, pretty, deformed, just has to be female of some sort and they will stare them down and go to town on themselves. Now the thing is, this is not rare. This is not one of those every once in a while things. So many do it, it's glorified within prison. The punishment for something like this is just going to confinement for 60 days, where you can gun COs behind a door. No extra sex charges or anything. It's normal. Super fucked up though. There's a book by Nathan McCall called Makes Me Wanna Holler. It's fantastic and I strongly recommend it. He spent 3 years in prison and one of the things he described was there was one inmate that had long hair and was a bit effeminate. The author got seriously freaked out as time passed and the effeminate inmate looked more and more like a woman to him. The prison gang started competing over this guy and basically broke his mind, telling him he was really a woman, until he became the sex toy of one of the gangs. It's crazy how screwed up prison society is and how strong the pressure is for the human body to have sexual release wherever it can find it. My husband is a guard. I'm not going to be able to tell this as well as he could, but you'll get the point. He was doing count one night and there was an inmate that was bleeding, so they went in to see what was happening. The inmate had bitten the inside of his wrist and forearm and pulled the skin off down to the muscle and tendons. He was also chewing on something, and when he was told to spit it out he did, and it was a chunk of his flesh. He then immediately ripped off another piece with his teeth and, according to my husband, slurped it up like spaghetti. They rushed him to medical and he ended up having to be in the psych building, clearly, after he recovered. I have a family member who worked as staff, not a guard, at a state prison in California. Their job required them to work inside the prison. This was in 2010. There was another staffer who worked there. We'll call her Samantha. Samantha was an attractive 30-year-old who was happily married and had 2 kids. She was generally well liked and nobody thought her behavior was strange or different. One day the prison started having a major issue with cell phones being smuggled in, lots of cell phones. The prison launched a huge investigation complete with shakedown, squeezing troublemaker inmates, the whole 9 yards. In one of the suites they found a love note between one of the inmates and Samantha. For anybody who doesn't know, prison guards and staff are absolutely prohibited from any sex with inmates. It's a serious crime that is prosecuted on a frighteningly regular basis. Turns out Samantha was not only having a sexual relationship with the inmate who had the letter, but she was having sex with 6 other inmates. So, she was fucking and exchanging long love letters with a total of 7 inmates simultaneously. One of the inmates had convinced her to smuggle in cell phones through the dry cleaning inmate work program. They estimate she smuggled in at least 50 phones this way. One of the other inmates she was involved with had been having his drug dealing proceeds from the street deposited into her personal savings account on the outside, so they had money to run away together. When the inmate got out, the inmate was serving a 17-year prison term. When this was discovered, there was major fallout for the staff and inmates at the prison. Security was tightened considerably, the dry cleaning work program was suspended, and Samantha was arrested and eventually sentenced to just over 3 years in prison. The craziest thing about the whole situation? Samantha's husband stayed with her. She got out of prison several years ago and they are a seemingly happy family once again.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to be entered into our iMac giveaway.